Hello everyone on YouTube. This is just a short video. My intention is to show anyone that owns a Adria Twin 640. Ours is a 640 SGX, so it's quite specific. I struggled to find any information online regarding priming the water system, the heater and so on. So I thought next time I fill it up, I'll show everyone how it's done and learn from some of the mistakes that I've made. So this is the van. It's a 640 SGX 2020 model. Apologies in advance, this is the first YouTube video I've ever uploaded, so the editing's going to be rubbish. So yeah, 2020 model. It's got a Whale underfloor water heater and a Webasto air heater. I say I struggle to find information on the priming of the water system, how it was done correctly, and we managed to dump the water a couple of times because I left one or two valves open. So yeah, feel free to learn from my mistakes. So the main components you're going to want to get at are going to be the water filling point here, which fills up the water tank which lives behind this cupboard system here. There's a flap here which you have to lift to get to the water tank drain valve. There's an overflow system on the tank, so if you happen to overfill it, it just starts going out the overflow rather than flood the van, I guess, which is good. Inside the van then, there's two valves which live under the floor here. I'll remove the carpets and so on for the next section of the video to make life easier. There's two valves that live under here. The Whale water heater, part of it comes up through the floor of the van and lives under this bench seat. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then basically then you have to get out the taps, obviously the kitchen taps, the bathroom taps and the shower in order to prime the lines. So I'll just remove the carpets, etc. and come back to you. Okay, so in the van now I've pulled a few bits out of the way to make life a bit easier. So under the bench seat there's the electrical distribution box with the MCBs in it, and underneath that you'll see there's a yellow handle which operates the drain for the boiler itself, the water heater itself, and there's two pipes coming in, one's a supply, one's a return. Okay, when that orange valve is in that position, that means it's draining down. Yeah, so it means the water boiler's drained down. You put it in that position, now that means it's closed. Yeah, so that's the boiler now ready for priming. I keep calling it a boiler, a water heater, sorry. Now in the area where you would have your feet if you were working in the kitchen, there's a small hatch in the floor. And that operates by pressing one side of this latch and lifting the flap out of the way. Look down in here carefully. There's two grey valves, there's one there and there's one there. Now they're 90-degree valves, so all you do is lift them up. They either pop up or they pop down. So pop it back down, okay? And then to reverse that, you'd fold them back up. So then coming into the rear of the van, remove this bed cushion. There's a small flap underneath that driver's side bed cushion. Pop that out. You see then this is the water tank. That's the lid of the water tank. And behind that there's a little black valve. If you turn that all the way clockwise, that closes the drain valve, ready for filling the tank. If you open it, it'll drain the tank, close it, it'll allow you to fill the tank. Okay, so once you've got the four valves inside the van closed, so that's the orange one under the bench seat, which is the boiler drain, the two under the floor by the kitchen unit, the two grey ones, that's the supply and return to the boiler, and then the black one on top of the water tank in the rear, that's the tank drain. Once those are closed, you're ready to start filling. I've got a dedicated hose that I use just for filling the van, just to keep everything nice and clean. But the tank is 100 litres, so it'll take a little while. And don't worry about it. I learned quite early on that the tank's got an overflow on it, so if you do happen to overfill the tank, rather than it being a problem, it just starts coming out of the back of the van. It just comes out down here somewhere. You might also get a little bit come out of there if you really fill the tank and then drive along. You will get a little bit sort of sloshing over the top of the tank and coming out of the overflow. So maybe worth just sort of travelling with it with the tank half full. Maybe you can check the progress of the water filling. You go into the van, to the main control panel. So the main control panel here, this is the controls. So this is the Whale water heater control unit. It's a very basic unit. It's just either on or off, or a frost protection setting. We've upgraded the Webasto control unit, so that's our air control unit, air heater control unit. And this is the unit then that controls the, you can see your gauges, so you can see what your batteries are doing. So that's the driving battery, the leisure battery, the water tank. So the water tank's getting there now, it's 75% full. And then that's the drain down tank, which is obviously empty at the moment. There's nothing in it. Okay. So just to illustrate the point, I've deliberately overfilled the tank, and you'll see water coming out here, just behind the rear driver's side wheel. That's the overflow, so that will go for a few minutes, or a minute or so. Don't worry about that, that's just the overflow. Okay, so the status now is that the water tank is full of water. It's showing 100% on the control panel, but obviously the pipework then going to all the taps and the shower is still full of air. So what you have to do is purge both the hot and cold water pipes now of air to get it ready for operation. So it took me a while to work out how to get the water pump working, but what you have to do is, when you've scrolled right onto either of the displays for the drain tank or the water tank, is press the knob and it comes up with a little symbol of a tap, and that means now that the pump in the water tank is armed and ready to pump. So you won't get any water come out of the taps without that. So next thing is go to the taps. I start with the kitchen one, and just in the cold water position, so that's down, just open it. You'll get a little bit of air come out, and then after a while you'll get water come out at a decent pressure. Okay, once you've done that, that is the cold water to this tap primed. And then move up to the hot water position, and you're now purging the boiler, effectively the whale water heater. It's an 8 litre unit, so it takes a while to get rid of all the air out of it. So I'll come back to that. Okay, so it's about 20 seconds later, that tap's still purging of air. So it's starting to get water come through now. Now keep it running until you get no coughing, spluttering air. You're confident that you've got rid of all the air out of the lines. So that looks good. Knock it off. Close the lid on that. So that's the kitchen tap now ready for service. Next thing, just repeat in the bathroom. So you've got the sink unit in the bathroom. Again, just pull it out. Put it in the cold water position. That looks good. Go to the hot water position. So both lines are purged on that. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the shower unit, but I'm going to do that off camera because I want to hold a bucket underneath it rather than get everything wet on the floor. Alternatively, just route the shower into the kitchen sink if you don't want to get the floor wet. Okay, so we've done that now. So we've got the water tank full, pipework is all full, taps and showers are ready to go. Obviously we've used a little bit of water from the water tank, so you might want to top that back up. I mean, you've used at least 8 litres to fill the whale heater. The next thing, this is the bit that prompted me to make this video, was we have this flashing fault light on the control panel for the whale heater. And I looked around and I really struggled to find any information on how you reset that. There's bits on the various forums saying it's because there's a 12-volt supply. There's no permanent 12-volt supply going to the whale heater. That is true, and that's why it goes in default every time you turn this control panel off. It recognises this is 3 flashes like that is basically a low DC voltage fault, but you don't have to worry about that. What I found is, when I eventually found some instructions, to get the boiler to cut in, you have to basically go on, off, on within 2.5 seconds. And that'll reset the fault. So I'll show you now. If I just go on, off, on, and you should, if everything's primed correctly and your gas is switched on in the rear locker, so you've got a gas bottle in here, and that's what's used to heat the whale boiler. Give it a second. And there you go. So now you've got a bright green light that indicates that the unit's running. And it takes then, I think it's around 20 minutes to get the boiler up to temperature, at which point then that light will go out and you're ready for your hot water, your shower or whatever. But if you just switch that unit off and on to try and get it to run, it won't work because it needs to see it go off, on within 2.5 seconds. Okay, so you've got to do it quite quickly. So one word of caution, if you forget to block in any of the drains that I showed you, so you've got the one under here and you've got the two under the floor here, then what will happen is the first time you open a tap or try to get any water out of the system, especially if that pump is on, but not exclusively, I mean it will gravity feed out, but with that pump on, is you will just dump all your water out through whichever drain you've left open. So make sure you block in the two grey valves, the orange one under the seat. Yeah. That way then you won't lose your water the first time you try and turn it on. Learned that lesson the hard way. Okay, so just to finish off the video now, everything in the van's primed and ready for service. The boiler's on. So I'm just priming the tank back up just to replace the 8 litres of water that we've used in the priming process. Job done. Okay, so when it comes to draining the system back down, it's pretty much the opposite of what we did previously. What you're going to do, before you do anything else, is make sure you've got the water pump turned off. So on this control panel, you remember if you scroll to either the water gauges, you can turn the water pump on or off. So make sure it's off. There's no symbol of a tap, so there's no danger of you running the water pump whilst there's no water in the tank and damaging the pump. So what do? Open up the black valve on top of the water tank. That will drain the water tank down. Open the two valves under the kitchen floor area. So that's the two grey valves, leave those pointing up. And that'll drain the supply and return to the whale heater. The orange valve under the seat here, make sure that's in this position facing towards the kitchen. That'll drain the whale boiler itself. And then go to each of your taps and sort of open them and put them in the halfway position, so that will drain the hot and the cold water, and it'll allow air into the system to drain it down. So do that with the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink and the shower unit. And that's that. Okay, so that's it done. Tank's re-primed, overflow stopped coming out. All that remains now is just to put the filler cap back on and lock it in position. So I hope this video will help someone out there. As I say, this is a 2020 Adria Twin 640 XGX Supreme. I know a lot of the Adrias are different to this one. They don't use the whale heater, but the actual priming of the taps and shower will be very, very similar. The water tank, I'd imagine, will be very, very similar. You just need to get the specific information then for your boiler. Okay.